I saw some approval polls for Kamala Harris that had it at 53. It was 44 favorable, 43 unfavorable. And I said, huh. That would be the highest approval rating a candidate for president has had since the last election. And I said it was one poll. It's one poll. Can't say much about it. And then another one came out. And then another one came out. Now we have this one that came out today from the Morning Consultant, very respected pollster. 50% approval rating for Kamala Harris, 46% disapproval. This is a jump of 7 points for Kamala. This would mean Kamala Harris is the only national president running for public office that has a positive approval rating, and is the only candidate during this election cycle that has ever had a positive approval rating during this cycle. Because Biden hasn't since 2021 and Trump hasn't, period. And so this is a real flip of the switch. This is a real moment that Democrats have as an opportunity, at least looking at paths forward, not looking in retrospect. Maybe there'll be information that's not available to me now that will be available to me in the future that I'm not seeing. But you have a candidate that is now liked by the majority of Americans. This is outside. This is outside the margin of error. Other ones don't have it outside the margin of error. This one does have it outside the margin of error. We have a candidate that's liked by the majority of Americans. But, with Joe Biden and with Donald Trump, these were candidates that everyone had gotten to know. People got to know Donald Trump pretty well by the time 2020 came around, and now definitely by the time 2024 came around. If you have an opinion on Donald Trump, you probably had an opinion on Donald Trump for the better part of 4 years or more. There's very few people saying, oh, that Donald Trump fella, wasn't he on The Apprentice anymore? Same thing with Zelensky in Ukraine. Nobody's saying, oh, was he on the TV show? You have an opinion of him now because he's been around for a bit. Same thing with Joe Biden. So getting to move those approval ratings of 38%, 39%, it's very difficult because you really got to make people feel that something has changed. There's a policy that has been adopted that you didn't expect that surprised you in a good way, or a policy that was rejected or a change. There has to be something to move those percentages. You know, a lot of campaign stops to be made. But when you've got something like someone like Kamala Harris, where the biggest attacks against her from the right is that she laughs a lot and that she's unqualified, even though she's a prosecutor from California, was a DA, was involved in California politics, was then a senator, and then vice president of the United States, serving on some of the most contentious issues in the nation. Like, saying that she's inexperienced is kind of crazy to me. I think this might be partially that back in 2020, we were in a weird moment where her being in any way involved with the law and justice system was like a bad thing because of the moment of what was happening in the country right now, at least when it comes to trying to sell yourself to a more left-wing crowd. It wasn't true in all circles, but in some left-wing circles, especially when she's trying to run to Biden's left and attack them on issues like busing. And so she didn't get to talk much about her career as a prosecutor. She didn't get to talk much about her career as a DA. Because, like, if she did, there might be some stuff in there that might not be as appealing to that specific subsect at that specific moment when we were having that conversation in the country. But now, running against a felon, I think we're about to learn a lot more about Kamala Harris. I think we're about to learn a lot more details about what she did as a prosecutor, the experience she has as a prosecutor. She's going to talk about the experience a lot, both when debating Donald Trump and when not debating Donald Trump on the campaign trail. Donald Trump looks like a man in a jumpsuit, and she looks like a big pair of handcuffs. And that is a pitch, definitely, when it comes to a counter to Donald Trump. And we're going to learn more about her. And my point is that there's just a lot about Kamala people don't know. And so she's still fresh. While she's been vice president for a while, she's polled as a very unpopular vice president. If you looked at her during like a few weeks ago, at this point in the administration, she was polling worse than Mike Pence. at the same time. Hell, she was polling worse than Dick Cheney. He was like plus 22 at the same time. But of course, that's like early Iraq War Dick Cheney. And we know how his image went down later, but in early Iraq War Dick Cheney. You can go back further too. She was polling the worst as a VP of like any VP in recent memory that I can think of. And now we've seen such a rapid change around. I think it's because people have not gotten to know Kamala. That Kamala's identity was inherently tied to Joe Biden's, and whatever Joe Biden's, like, she would shift with. She didn't get many seconds in the spotlight. Her biggest foreign policy moment, going to the Ukraine peace summit, got like no press attention. How much blame falls at the feet of the press? How much blame falls at the feet of the White House and them not pushing her enough? I mean, there was a question due to that low popularity rating amongst Biden when he was seriously asking about being replaced, and amongst other about her being the replacement due to that low favorability rating, but it shifted rapidly. And I think it's, number one, she's 59 and Donald Trump is 78, and Donald Trump is now the oldest U.S. presidential candidate nominated for the office because Joe Biden never was nominated by his party. So that makes Donald Trump the oldest at 78, because when he would leave office, he would be older than Biden is now, and going into his mid-80s. And I think having this younger face, this fresh face, because people either don't remember much of what she said in 2020, or that was stuff that only Democrats and independents maybe didn't get to hear a lot of. And, you know, it's been a long time. And of course, you'd only got to know her running in a Democratic primary, not her after 4 years as vice president, now speaking to a national audience and not having to try to ponder to certain factions within the party. And so maybe she could message herself differently. But I think after being stuck with such two old farts that you've heard the same things over and over and over and over and over, the same crazy truth social posts, the same ranting about, you know, come on, man. And you're just so sick of it, and you just wanted something fresh, and you got something younger, fresher at least. And the immediate attacks against her is she laughs and she's inexperienced, but then you hear immediately from the news hosts about all of her experience as a prosecutor, as a DA, and all the stuff that now she can lean into that she couldn't back in 2020, especially given the current circumstances of who she's running against. And so I think that just the noise of possibilities, the hope people place in her as another option, combined with her age, combined with the freshness, and with the Kamala team starting off on a good footing with $200 million fundraising within, I think, like a week and a half, 66 of those donations coming from first-time donors, 170,000 new sign-up volunteers. They're starting off on a good footing, on a really good footing. So from Kamala's perspective, her favorability's up. This is the only time it's been up since she's been vice president. She just raised $200 million, added to a $91 million Joe Biden war chest, on top of course, all the super PAC money that's out there. And she did that in the week and a half, a much bigger volunteer game. She's already running volunteers on the ground in Florida, by the way. And maybe you don't think Kamala can win Florida. I think the odds are very slim. But if she puts volunteers on the ground in Florida, then the Trump campaign got to put troops on the ground in Florida. You know how we're talking about how the Russians put troops in Kharkiv to divert forces away from the Donetsk region so they could try to push forward into Toretsk and Pokrovsk and other locations? Well, it also works with volunteers and campaigning. And another way where they invest resources, so you invest resources. You do ad buys, you do ad buys. And so just by adding more, I mean, she is taking a front foot right now. She's on the front foot. And part of being on the front foot from the Kamala Harris angle seems to be less long speeches about democracy being at risk, which is something that the Democratic Party believes as a constituency, something that much of the leadership believes. It is something that they've been campaigning on hard. And when I was talking to voters in Ohio, when I was doing some work with PV, Progressive Victory, and I was talking to them, I was listening to Democratic voters tell me these concerns. I have concerns about democracy in the United States. We're going to hear less of that, not all of it. We still heard some, so it's not going to be gone. But we're going to hear a lot more short, punchy stuff. And the big, short, punchy attack that Tim Walz of Minnesota, the governor of Minnesota, the one, you know, the free school lunches governor, You know, the governor that gave paid family leave and paid sick leave, that governor. Well, he came out with an attack a few months ago calling Donald Trump and the MAGA movement weird. And then it spread over to JD Vance, him calling him weird too. And they started using weird. And then it got picked up. And now they're calling him weird. They've been doing it in donation emails, both for Tim Walz and for the Kamala campaign. And apparently from the Tim Walz camp, they're saying that it actually got more interactions than usual and that it's been playing very well. And now Kamala's throwing it out there and it seems to be playing well out there too. But now their allies are using it. And so it isn't just Walz, it's other people. I think I saw Josh Shapiro saying something along those lines. Actually, we actually have a line from here. Josh Shapiro taking the governor of Minnesota's attack and repurposing it into another attack on Trump and gang as all these allies pick up the weird attack. Look at this.
Have you ever seen this guy? Like when he's on the stage, he like kind of meanders over, you know, can't really walk well, and he goes over to the flag and he like hugs the flag. I mean, I love the flag, but it's a weird thing he does, right? But while he's hugging the flag, you know what he's doing? He's ripping away our freedoms. That's what he's all about, because here's what I know. It's not freedom to tell our children what books they're allowed to read. That's not freedom. It is not freedom to tell people they can go to work, but they can't join a union. That's not freedom. It is not freedom to tell women what they're allowed to do with their bodies. That's not freedom.
So, weird. Now, I've seen it used in a lot of contexts, and I can see how it could be very easily used here. When you talk about JD Vance, this dude is weird. He's weird from the post he's made about dolphins. It's weird that the person that he compared to heroin and opiate for America, and this is a guy from Ohio that certainly knows the worst of what the Sackler family can do and others can do, is going to compare him to that, compare him basically devil himself, and then like 2 years later, he's like a Trumper, he's in the movement, he's begging for his endorsement on the campaign trail. That is weird. That is weird. It's that weird, the post he made about the dolphin humping. That is weird. That is weird, isn't it? It is weird what he said about childless cat ladies. It's weird about saying that people without kids should have less voting rights. Their votes should mean less. They'd have less political influence. That is weird. That is weird. And I mean, like the controls on contraception. The regulations on what a woman can and cannot do with their body. These are all things that you can probably pretty accurately go after by calling weird. And, you know, it's a more gut thing. It's less, oh, here's all the things that are immoral with them making it so somebody without kids has less voting power. It's just like just going into that gut thing and saying, yeah, we're telling you it's bad. Before they like, oh, let's think about the details. They hit you with, boom, it's weird. That gut feeling you got in your chest when you heard, oh, people without kids vote less. That gut feeling, justify it. Immediate justification before then going into the specific details. Because if you are trying to debate with somebody like Donald Trump, who's out there with short, catchy catchphrases, he's going to say something like fake news, you're gay, and autism, you're autistic and gay, gay autism. That's my attack. You're Mr. Gay Autism. And then you're out there and you're like, well, first off, I am not a homosexual. I am bisexual. I have had relations with both. And my wife would disagree with you on the fact that I am bisexual. And before you're even on to the second lie, he's then on, actually, you can't believe you because you're also a liar and you're a con man and you stole orphans and you diddled kids and you did it. And then he's already into so many other attacks. He's already into so many other short, punchy things. And even if it's not attack mode and it's just him talking policy, like, I'm going to deport them all. And then he doesn't go into any of the details. He's going to be like, Ukraine invasion's your fault. And then none of the details. These short, punchy things, even if they're not accurate, even if they're going to make policy wonks like me want to like, scream, they have an effect. They affect people. And even though people know they're being lied to, with the only thing, Joe Biden and his terrible debate performance against Donald Trump, the only thing that he won out on Donald Trump on is honesty. The people who polled him said he was more honest, but everything else on all the other issues, they said he was worse. Which is weird, because you would think if someone's not being honest with you, that hurts you in every other category. Because if somebody's lying to me, then I know they're lying to me about the economy. Then I know they're lying to me about national defense. But even if that's the case, even people know that he's lying, there's some feeling that some of the things he is saying, even if not true in all detail, might be true to some effect. Even if he knows nothing about foreign policy, it does feel like we've lost in some way in some conflicts. Even if he doesn't know everything about jobs in the economy, it does feel like some things are more expensive when he says, even if like the idea that inflation's crazier than ever. Inflation's down to like 2% right now, right? Inflation is down. I mean, in Russia, it's 7.5%, you know? Another country. But there's something there that feels true, because there's some or other deeper economic meaning. Like, hey, the cost of living when it comes to housing could have gone up, but inflation's down. And so these things can lead to you still having bad economic outcomes on the individual level. So these broad economic indicators, which are true and mean good things for you, might not have hit and helped you specifically, or might have helped one sector of the economy, but not you. And therefore, these things that Trump are saying that are not true could be true on a feelings level, which to some people is more true than the actual truth. At least definitely when it comes to convincing them and such. Point is, getting into these detailed policy conversations, when that's the type of conversation Trump wants to have, is not going to be beneficial for you. It can be beneficial to a certain subsect. Like, once you've gotten into the nooks and crannies, it can be very beneficial. But if he's throwing out like 5 points and you're only able to rebut 1 before he's moved on to putting out 3 more points, he's smearing feces on the wall much clearer than you can clean it up, much quicker than you can clean it up. And so Democrats need something short and punchy too. And so you can get into those policy wonk conversations. You can try to outwonk and make yourself look smarter than Trump on the stage, but you need something to fire back at something to fire back. And weird is something to grab people. That everything follows weird can build upon it, but you've just justified that weird feeling in the stomach that people have when they read those stories about JD Vance and the crazy beliefs that he has on the fringes of the political right. And he could now be serving as the vice president of the oldest man who's ever been nominated for the White House to be hoisted to vice presidency. And who VP is more important than ever as a discussion for president than I think in any election before this one, because we're dealing with the oldest candidate in American history. And he also is one of the most unpopular VP picks in American history, with I think a favorability rating of, last time I checked, like 24% in some of these polls. So, I mean, you sign up for Trump, you better be ready to sign up for JD Vance and all of his weird details. But this attack ad is not just being made by specific people like Waltz and Shapiro and others on Fox News when doing these interviews or on the campaign stops. It's also being used by the super PACs. And Won't Pack Down just released an ad going after the weird positions of the American right and Project 2025. Check this out, because they really do their best to make America uncomfortable.
Us MAGA Republicans banned abortion, but that's just the start.
That's just the start. If Trump gets elected, we want the government involved in all aspects of your sex life.
Way more involved.
Way more involved.
When you have sexual intercourse, it should be illegal to use contraception. No pills, no condoms.
Your genitals are reserved for procreation.
If you freeze 12 eggs, you should be required to have 12 babies, or else you're a serial killer. And I'm definitely not a serial killer.
Are you?
My son monitors my porn usage to make sure I'm not self-pleasuring.
Just like Speaker of the House Mike Johnson. That's true. You can look at.
It is true. Okay. Why would he even... Number one, crazy that he does that. Number two, why would you ever think you could say that publicly? What social norms do you think exist in this country that that's going to be a good thing another person looks upon?
it up.
Don't you think that's normal?
Yeah, I do.
It's normal for your son to do that.
You should have a family member monitor your porn use too.
Because pleasuring yourself is very, very naughty.
I'm voting in November.
I'm voting in November. We're all voting in November. Are you?
Because what happens in your bedroom is up to me.
Is up to me and my son. Also, mouth stuff is a sin.
Mouth stuff is a sin. So the PACs are in on the attack. Kamala's allies are in on the attack. The fundraising emails are in the attack, on the attack. It seems like Kamala is going for more punchy than policy walk at the opening bell. Oh, here's another one. Here's from Kamala HQ. The big campaign account. This is unearthed audio of JD Vance from a recent JD Vance campaign stop this weekend, where JD says the word asshole, he cusses, and the audience just does not vibe with it. It seems like maybe Vance, after being received so negatively, maybe he wants to revamp, like, I gotta, channel that Trumpian aesthetic, but like, he's also like just a massive grifter, so he has no real personality, and so he's stale as all hell. And so he goes out there and he cusses and just nobody buys into it. And it just seems like he's being very uncouth, and it somehow just makes him feel unprofessional, less than a bad boy. Listen to this.
Please sit down, please. I always, it's very kind of you to give me a standing ovation, but you ought to wait for me to say what I'm going to say, right? You might hear what I have to say and think I'm an asshole. You can't take forget my language.
I think I heard two people laugh. I heard like two people laugh. Vice President of the United States, JD Vance. You guys ready for those words to be read after Donald Trump eats one too many burgers and dies like Elvis on the shitter? Vice President of the United States, JD Vance. Oh, I will say though that while Kamala's allies have the weird attack, Donald J. Trump, he has unlocked the much more, I would say, scandalous political undercurrent that is not reported on by the press. How Saudi Arabia has signed up for Kamala mania. They're on the coconut train. Listen to this. OPEC nations. That OPEC is a coalition of petroleum producing countries that have come together to like help set prices to like what's best for them and their economies and such. OPEC nations are going all out to drive down oil prices in the hope that crazy Kamala Harris will win. Then they will really reap the rewards. She will be a disaster for the USA. It's very funny. It's very funny to me that every single time anything good happens in the economy, we get one of two Trump responses. The first one is to say that it's a plot. Is that if anything good happens, if it's a good jobs report, if it's that oil prices are down, if it's that inflation's now down to 2%, if it's now that black unemployment is down more than ever, even under Trump, which he used to brag about, like it's all a plot against him, and it's all being done to undermine his electoral chances. Under this logic, though, it's much easier to understand how he could shoot down an immigration deal negotiated by Senator James Lankford, very conservative Republican from Oklahoma. If a deal like that, which is giving the Republicans much of what they want for little in return, why that could get shot down if all he's thinking about is, well, if the country's doing any better on the issues that voters care about, well, then I might lose. If you think about it from that perspective and not from an actual policy perspective and implementing the policies you care about, much easier to understand Trump's thinking here. But that's the first way to think about it. It's a plot. The second way to think about it is just to take credit for them anyway. For example, what I was just talking about, that lowest black unemployment rating, he actually tries to take credit for that on occasion. Still, what he'll do is he'll say that under Trump caused the lowest black unemployment rating ever. Or he'll claim, and so what he means by that is that, oh, well, the economy now is actually Trump's doing. At least all the good things. All the bad things are not Trump's doing. That's Biden's doing. All the good things are Trump's doing. And so he'll just claim the black unemployment numbers from now, so he can continue to claim that he had the lowest black unemployment rate numbers in history since Biden's were lower than his. And he does this for a bunch of different economic indicators, meaning that according to Trump, he can count the numbers from his administration and from Biden administration, any of their positive economic numbers as his own, while also blaming any of the negative economic numbers either on COVID or President Biden. So basically, he can have his cake and eat it too. He can just claim all the good stuff, blame all the bad stuff on Biden. Because if the economy crashed tomorrow, this would all be President Biden. If we got an even lower black unemployment rating, that would be President Trump. That's how it works. It's either plot or Trump did it anyway.